In the winter of 2004, at around 7:30 p.m., the Haverhill police received 2 phone calls reporting that a young lady had driven her car into a snowbank on a dark, winding road in Woodsville, New Hampshire. But by the time the police reached the location of the accident, just a few minutes after the first call, she was nowhere to be found. She appeared to have simply disappeared into the cold winter night, leaving behind her personal belongings in her locked car. What followed was an investigation into one of the most bizarre and baffling disappearances in the history of New Hampshire. I'm Frank, and let's get started. Maura Murray was born on May 4, 1982, in Brockton, Massachusetts. She was the 4th child of Frederick and Laurie Murray and was raised in an Irish Catholic household. After her parents divorced when she was 6 years old, she lived primarily with her mother in Hanson, Massachusetts. Maura was a standout student and athlete at Whitman-Hanson Regional High School, where she excelled on the track team and established a reputation for being highly motivated and academically gifted. Her athletic prowess was significant enough to earn her a spot at the United States Military Academy at West Point. Maura studied chemical engineering at West Point for 3 semesters. Her time there was marked by high academic performance, but also by a significant disciplinary incident. She was accused of stealing a small amount of makeup from a commissary at Fort Knox during training. This led to an honor board investigation. But before the board could reach a final decision, which likely would have resulted in a departure, Maura chose to leave the academy voluntarily. She transferred to the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, in 2002 to study nursing. By early 2004, she was a junior in the nursing program with a high grade point average. In the months preceding February 2004, Maura's personal life became increasingly complicated. In November 2003, she was caught using a stolen credit card number to order food from several local restaurants. She admitted to the incident, and the charge was held for 3 months, set to be dismissed if she maintained good behavior. On the night of February 5, 2004, while working her campus security job, Maura received a phone call from her sister, Kathleen. During this call, Maura learned that her sister, who had recently been discharged from a rehabilitation clinic, had suffered a relapse. Shortly after the call, Maura's supervisor found her in a state of total emotional collapse, described as being completely unresponsive and zoned out. When asked what was wrong, Maura only replied, "My sister." Two days later, on Saturday, February 7, her father Fred visited her at the university. They spent the day car shopping and went to dinner with one of Maura's friends. Later that night, Maura borrowed her father's new Toyota Corolla to attend a dorm party. While driving back to her father's motel at 3:30 a.m. on Sunday, February 8, she struck a guardrail in Hadley, Massachusetts. The accident caused nearly $10,000 in damage to the vehicle. The police officer who responded did not conduct field sobriety tests or issue a citation. Maura spent the remainder of the morning at her father's motel. These stresses, the legal trouble, her sister's relapse, and the car accident weighed heavily on Maura. On Monday, February 9, 2004, after midnight, she used her personal computer to search for directions to the Berkshires in Burlington, Vermont. Throughout the morning, she performed several tasks that indicated she planned to leave campus. At 1 p.m., she emailed her boyfriend, Bill Rausch, saying she did not feel like talking to anyone, but promised to call later. A few minutes later, she called a fellow nursing student, though the purpose of the call remains unknown. At 1:24 p.m., Maura sent an email to her nursing professors and a work supervisor at the university, stating that she would be away for a week due to a death in her family. The police and her family later confirmed that no such death had occurred. She also made a 3-minute phone call to a condominium owner in Bartlett, New Hampshire, a place where her family had vacationed in the past. But no reservation was made. At 2:05 p.m., she called a recorded information line for hotels in Stowe, Vermont. Maura began packing her belongings. When police later searched her dorm room, they found her clothes and textbooks packed into boxes, and the art removed from the walls. At 3:30 p.m., she drove a 1996 black Saturn sedan off the UMass campus. Surveillance footage captured her at 3:40 p.m. withdrawing $280 from a Bank of America ATM in the Big Y Plaza in Hadley, Massachusetts. Shortly after, she visited a liquor store and purchased alcohol. At 4:37 p.m., she checked her cellular phone voicemail for the last time. She then drove north, likely taking Interstate 91, and turned onto Route 112, a very dark stretch of road with no streetlights. At approximately 7:27 p.m., a resident on Route 112, Faith Westman, called the Grafton County Sheriff's Department to report that a car had failed to clear a sharp S-curve and hit a snowbank. Westman reported seeing a person walking around the vehicle and what she thought was a red glow inside, which she later suggested might have been from a cell phone. A passing school bus driver, Butch Atwood, arrived at the scene shortly after the crash. He spoke with the driver, whom he later identified as Maura. He noted that the airbags had deployed and she was shivering, but she declined his help and pleaded with him not to call the police, claiming she had already called the American Automobile Association, AAA. But knowing there was no cell service at that particular stretch of road, the bus driver doubted if she had really made that call. So, after reaching his house, which was only about 100 feet from the crash site, he called the police anyway at 7:43 p.m. using his landline. Haverhill Police Sergeant Cecil Smith arrived at the scene of the accident at 7:46 p.m., but Maura was nowhere to be found. The sergeant found the car locked and observed red stains on the driver's side door and the ceiling. A damaged box of wine was also found on the rear seat. A rag had been stuffed into the car's tailpipe, a detail that has never been fully explained. While her textbooks and maps were in the car, her credit cards, cell phone, and the liquor she bought were missing. On February 10, Maura's father reached out to the police and informed them that his daughter was missing. It was only then that the authorities realized they were dealing with a missing person case rather than a simple hit and run where the driver had fled the scene to avoid the police. The first formal search began on February 11. New Hampshire State Police, along with Fish and Game, the state's primary search and rescue agency, used tracking dogs near the crash site. One dog followed the scent for about 100 feet east of the car before losing it abruptly in the middle of the road. This led investigators to believe she may have been picked up by a vehicle. On February 19, a second search involved helicopters with thermal imaging and divers for nearby bodies of water. No footprints were found in the deep snow surrounding the road, suggesting Maura did not wander into the woods at the crash site. In the months following the disappearance, several leads emerged. Her boyfriend reported receiving a voicemail on February 11 consisting of the sound of someone sobbing, though investigators could not confirm the caller's identity. In late 2004, one of the most promising yet chilling leads in the case surfaced when a local man, Larry Moulton, approached Maura's father and handed him a rusty knife, alleging it belonged to his brother, a man with a history of violence who lived near the crash site. The man explicitly stated that he believed that his brother, Claude Moulton, had used that very knife to kill Maura. Fred Murray immediately turned the weapon over to the police. But the investigation quickly hit a wall. Because the knife was heavily rusted and had been exposed to the elements, extracting usable DNA proved nearly impossible. While forensic teams managed to find some biological traces, they were far too degraded to establish a match to Maura. With no DNA profile to link the weapon to the crime, the lead went cold, and authorities were once again back to square one. In 2009, the case was transferred to the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit. That same year, a massive search was conducted near the wild Ammonoosuc River because its rugged banks were seen as a likely place for a person to be hidden or lost. But that yielded no results either. The following years saw significant advancements in forensic and aerial technology, which enabled the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit to conduct a search of a 5-mile radius from the crash site using aircraft equipped with high-resolution cameras. But even that failed to uncover any clues. In 2017, the FBI officially entered the case into the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, NamUs. Investigative efforts also expanded into the digital realm as law enforcement reviewed computer records which showed that Maura had been looking into birth control and the effects of alcohol on pregnancy shortly before her disappearance. A few years later, in 2021, the investigation gained momentum once again when human bone fragments were discovered on Loon Mountain, situated about 30 miles east of the crash site. But forensic testing later determined that the remains were historical and not related to Maura's case. Additionally, investigators looked for links between Maura and other missing persons cases, specifically Brianna Maitland, who disappeared in Vermont just 5 weeks after Maura. Maitland's car was also found abandoned following a minor accident. While the circumstances were remarkably similar, the FBI and the state police in both New Hampshire and Vermont have officially stated that no evidence exists to link the two cases. Police have also reviewed the records of known local offenders and individuals who were in the area on the night of February 9, but no suspects have ever been named. Today, the case remains active with the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, VICAP. There has been no activity on Maura's social security number or bank accounts since February 9, 2004. Investigators continue to review thousands of tips, yet no physical evidence of her whereabouts has ever been found beyond the crash site. Maura's disappearance has been cited as the first crime mystery of the social media age due to the great amount of engagement in online forums and message boards. Nevertheless, despite decades of both professional investigation and online scrutiny, Maura Murray remains missing. Maura's family maintains that she was a victim of foul play, while law enforcement keeps all possibilities open, including death by exposure or voluntary disappearance. If she indeed disappeared voluntarily to make a fresh start, I hope she's doing okay. But if she was the victim of foul play, I hope those responsible will eventually be brought to justice. Either way, I wish that her family gets some answers sometime in the future. I'm Frank, and I'll see you again. Goodbye for now.